There are gods who rule the world, who control the sky, the sea, and even the dead. They make choices, take sides, and shape the fate of mortals and kingdoms. But there is something even they cannot control, something older than power, something that does not choose. Because it does not need to. Moros was not a god in the way others were. He did not sit on Olympus. He did not command armies. He did not demand worship, and yet, even the gods feared him. Moros was the embodiment of doom, not death itself, but the moment before it. The certainty that something will end, no matter what is done to prevent it. He did not bring destruction with force. He did not strike like lightning or drown like the sea. He simply existed, and because he existed, fate could not be escaped. Unlike other beings, Moros had no emotion, no anger, no joy, no desire. He did not punish. He did not reward. He did not care. His presence was quiet, almost invisible, but it carried a weight that could not be ignored. Because when Moros appeared, it meant one thing: the end was already decided. Even Zeus, the king of the gods, could not command him. The gods could interfere with events, change outcomes, protect those they favored. But Moros was different. He did not follow their rules. He was not part of their hierarchy. He existed beyond it. He was not above them. He was outside them. This is what made him terrifying, because strength could not stop him. Wisdom could not outhink him, and power could not control him. When mortals spoke of fate, they often imagined it as something distant, something that could perhaps be changed with the right choices. But Moros was the reminder that some things are not meant to be changed, that some endings are inevitable. There were stories whispered among both gods and mortals, stories of moments where everything seemed normal, where life continued as it always had. And then, without warning, something shifted. A feeling, a presence, not seen, not heard, but understood. Moros had arrived, not to act, not to interfere, but to confirm. From that moment on, no matter what happened, no matter how much one struggled or fought, the outcome would not change. It could be delayed, it could be resisted, but it could not be avoided. This is why Moros did not need temples. No one prayed to him, because what would be the point? You do not pray to something that cannot be changed. You do not worship something that does not listen. And you do not escape something that has already decided your end. And yet, despite all of this, life continued. Wars were fought, kings ruled, gods interfered. The world moved forward as if fate was something that could be shaped. But in the shadows of every decision, Moros waited, not as an enemy, not as a force of destruction, but as a certainty, and sooner or later, everyone would meet him. What made Moros truly terrifying was not just that he represented the end, but that once his presence was felt, everything else began to lose meaning. Plans, strength, hope, even the of the gods themselves. None of it could fully change what was already set in motion. There were moments in myth when mortals believed they could escape their fate. Kings who tried to outsmart prophecy. Warriors who thought strength would protect them. Even heroes, guided by the gods, who believed they were chosen to survive. But when Moros appeared, all of that certainty began to break. It was never loud. There were no storms, no earthquakes, no signs that something powerful had arrived. Instead, it was quiet, subtle, a shift in the world that only some could feel, a moment where everything seemed normal, but no longer safe. Because Moros did not create events, he confirmed them. There are stories of men who were warned, told that their end was near, given a chance to change their path. And for a time, it seemed to work. They avoided danger, made careful decisions, stayed away from the very things that could harm them. But fate does not need direct paths. It finds new ones. A step taken to avoid danger leads to another place. A choice made to survive creates a different risk. And slowly, without realizing it, they moved closer to the very thing they were trying to escape. This is how Moros worked, not through force, but through inevitability. Even the gods could not fully protect those they favored. They could delay events, interfere, shift outcomes for a time, but there were limits. And beyond those limits, there was nothing they could do, because Moros was not against them. He simply existed where their power ended. There were rare moments when someone understood this, when a mortal realized that escape was no longer possible. And in those moments, something changed, not in the world, but in them. Fear disappeared, not because they were safe, but because they understood there was nothing left to fear. The outcome was already decided. The struggle was no longer about survival, but about how they would face the end. And strangely, this is where Moros became something more than just doom. he became clarity, because when nothing can be changed, everything becomes simple. Choices are no longer about avoiding the end. They are about meaning, about how one chooses to stand when there is no way out. This is why Moros was not worshipped, but remembered, not as a god who destroyed, but as a presence that revealed truth, a truth that neither gods nor mortals wanted to face, that control is an illusion, that power has limits, and that some endings are already written. But even this was not the end of his story, because there were moments when the line between fate and choice became blurred. Moments when it seemed like the impossible might happen, moments when someone tried to defy even Moros. There were always those who believed they could escape, not because they were stronger, not because they were chosen, but because they refused to accept that their story had already been written. These were the ones who challenged fate itself, kings who tried to rewrite prophecy, warriors who fought battles they were never meant to win, mortals who believed that one decision, one moment, could change everything. And for a time, it seemed like they were right. They survived what should have ended them. They avoided the paths that led to destruction. They made choices that looked like freedom. But Moros was never in a hurry, because he did not need to act. Time itself worked for him. Every delay, every escape, every attempt to break away from fate only created a longer path, not a different one. And slowly, step by step, those who resisted found themselves closer to the same ending they had tried to avoid, not because they were weak, but because the end had never changed. This is what made Moros different from any other force in mythology. Even death could be delayed, even gods could be challenged, even war could be won or lost, but doom was already decided. There is something deeply unsettling about that idea, that no matter how much strength, intelligence, or power someone has, there are moments where none of it matters. Moments where the outcome is no longer shaped by action, but by certainty. And yet, within that certainty, there is something else. Choice. Not the choice to escape, but the choice of how to face it. Because when everything else is stripped away, when the illusion of control disappears, what remains is not fear, but truth. The truth of who someone really is when nothing can save them. This is where Moros becomes more than just an ending. He becomes a mirror, a reflection of every decision, every belief, every moment that led to that final point. And in that reflection, there is no hiding, no lies, no second chances, only reality. The world of gods and mortals continues to move, as it always has. Wars begin and end, empires rise and fall, people live, fight, hope, and dream as if the future is something they can shape. And maybe, in many ways, they can. But beneath all of that, there is something constant, something unchanging, something that does not need power to exist. Moros does not chase, he does not hunt, he does not destroy, he waits. And when the moment comes, he does not take anything away, he simply reveals that it was never meant to last.